Catherine in Manchester. Hi, Catherine.
Oh, hi there from a sunny Manchester for a change.
Well, indeed. What would you like to ask?
I'm about to go off to a family Easter gathering, and half my family voted Leave, half voted Remain. Some of the Leavers have changed their mind, some of them haven't. And one thing they keep going on about is when Farage says, we'll just leave on WTO, And I'm no expert, but I've kind of grasped...
Nor is he.
I've kind of grasped that services, which is 80% of our economy, aren't covered under WTO, and it obviously threatens the Good Friday Agreement. But what I'd really like is a really short explanation that I can use to talk to some of my Leaver family who haven't changed their minds.
Are you presumably as somebody who voted Remain and wants to persuade those Leavers who voted Leave to change their minds?
I kind of want to just start dealing in facts as opposed to the rhetoric. I was a kind of a 60% Remainer, 40% Leaver. There's things that need to reform in the EU. I see that. But now I've kind of become 100% Remainer after 3 years of seeing what a mess they've made of everything and learning a lot myself about what the EU does. So I'd really like to challenge this. Let's just leave on WTO and everything will be fine, because as far as I can work it out, it is a disaster.
Well, so WTO, what I think the Brexit side, the Farage side of the argument has done reasonably well, has make this idea of no deal, the code for it has become, we leave on WTO terms and we can trade with the rest of the world, blah, blah, blah. The first thing is, overnight, we lose dozens of trade deals that we have at the moment as members of the European Union, and we become a very small market competing with the very large market is the European Union. I think that is the first big point.
Well, some of them have been rolled over, and there's now a bit more time for others to be rolled over.
Ian is rebutting here with the fact that Liam Fox has made a trip to the Faroe Islands.
Catherine wanted no. Okay, Catherine wanted some facts. It's not just the Faroe Islands. There are lots of different countries.
There aren't that many.
I can Google the list if you want me to.
Go on, then you do that while I'm talking to Catherine. But it's not a very long list, and it's not a very impressive list. The second thing I think you say to them is that if we leave on so-called no-deal terms, I was in France recently, and I drove down through Kent, and you just before you go out for your lunch with your friends, Google Operation Stack and look up how quickly, if we have just a few minutes of checks on lorries which currently go through our ports without being stopped, how quickly Kent becomes a car
again,
park.
The Port of Calais and the Port of Dover say that shouldn't happen.
They said it shouldn't happen.
Well, no, they've said it won't happen.
No, they've said it shouldn't happen. But then if
because they're not intending to do a lot of extra checks.
In other words, so what is the point of what we're doing? If we're actually not going to take back control of our borders, what is the point? And if I can go, Catherine, to Northern Ireland, Nigel Farage and Rees-Mogg and the rest of them, they say because the European Union don't want a hard border, because the Irish government doesn't want a hard border, the British government doesn't want a hard border, therefore we don't need to have a hard border. If we leave on WTO rules, we will have to have a border because there will have to be checks. And Ian Duncan Smith and these guys, they blather on endlessly about technological solutions. They do not exist. So I think for the chaos that it would cause at our ports, for the shrinking of our market, and the fact that we'll have to go and carve out new deals as a much weaker, much smaller market, and the threat to the Good Friday Agreement, I think you've got three decent arguments to go and speak to your family if they want to hear.
Well,
that's really interesting. Sorry, can I just...
Go on.
Some of my family have Irish heritage, and my mum, who voted Leave, who's 84, actually said what she's learnt about the Good Friday Agreement and being outside single market customs union and how that's going to threaten, we might have to have a border there. That's actually what's made her change her mind.
Hang on, Catherine. Only if the EU put it up.
No, but hold on a minute, Ian, this is just a nonsense.
No, it's not.
It is.
If the British government has said they won't put it up, the Irish government has said they won't.
Wait a minute. They've said they don't want to. Nobody wants to. If we are out of the look. We come out of the political institutions and we come out of the economic institutions, right? We talk about Ireland.
Isn't it strange how the European Union isn't even mentioned in the Good Friday Agreement?
Let me finish. Sorry, the European Union. I was there. Don't forget, I was part of the
but
team.
It isn't in the text, is it?
The European Union was a big part of the support. That border,
isn't in the text.
That border between the north of Ireland and the Republic, we talk about it as though it's Ireland. That becomes the only land border with the European Union.
Am I right that the European Union isn't mentioned in the text of the Good Friday Agreement?
I'd be very surprised if it's not.
It isn't.
Are you sure about that? It was certainly a very, very big support in the process, for sure.
Yeah.
And that is not to be underestimated.
I think they are signatories to it.
Fine.
But it's that they aren't mentioned in the text. All I'm saying here is that, even Michel Barnier has slightly softened on this now and has said, well, there are forms of technology that can be used in the future. It may not exist right at the moment. He's also said that we could copy what we do in other areas of the European Union, and border checks are not carried out on the border as such, because that's the sensitivity.
Yeah.
So if you have all three parties willing to actually look at what the options are, we know that there have been reports in the European Parliament that say this is possible, then you'd like to think that it is possible.
You might like to think all sorts of things. You might like to think you can have your cake and eat it. You might like to think, yes, it is, because you're dealing in more fantasies. If we leave on no deal, and don't underestimate, if we did leave on no deal, any goodwill that these guys, that your previous tweeter didn't like me being nice about Tusk, but we leave on no deal, say goodbye to the goodwill that actually has been there in trying to make this stuff work. And we
I'm not sure there
have
has
to.
Been much.
Well, I think there has, and I think they've been incredibly tolerant of our utterly dysfunctional politics.
I've got my list of